Favorite subject is always
freestyle.
Yeah.
Duh.
That's what we're going to talk about right now as we're getting ready for the finals.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay, always freestyle.
Yes.
Yeah, so today we wanted to talk about the different ways that rules of the organizations affect how you play and how you strategize maybe your routine or what you do when you play.
Yes, and across all the organizations, they're all 2-minute freestyle routines, except for Skyhounds, that's a minute and a half. But then there's a lot. All the other rules are more expansive, I'd say, in terms of differences.
Sure.
And things that you have to think about.
It's interesting because there's more or less it's the same game, right? Going from all of the organizations that offer freestyle, but they all kind of have their own twist on the rules.
Yep.
Should we talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
Kind of like just some of the basic differences.
Yeah, go for it.
So first and foremost, probably the biggest difference is the time, the amount of time. Skyhounds is the only one that offers 90 seconds. The others are pretty much all 2 minutes. And then the number of discs that you get to use. I think that's the other biggest differentiator. So Skyhounds is 5 discs, UFO is 7, AWI is 9, Updog is 8, and USDDN is 10, and IDC is unlimited. So they're all like a little bit different. So that can really kind of make a difference on how you're making sequences.
Certainly, and definitely the time is the most important difference. I mean,
I think so.
30 seconds is a huge difference.
Well, you're chopping out a quarter of the routine.
Right, and that's at least one sequence and probably more than that. And we'll get into why it is more than that.
Yeah.
Especially when you compare those types of routines. When you're going from 7 discs to 8 discs to 10 discs and that kind of thing, I don't think that's as important.
No.
But it's still
impactful. 5 to 8? That's a big jump.
The 5
we'll talk about
jumping up is definitely a big difference.
I think the other differences as well, I think Skyhounds is a little more vague on their rules. So all of these organizations have their rules. By the way, keep in mind, we're going off the rules based on now. Who knows? Some of these rules may change in the future, but
sure. And with Skyhounds, we'll just start there.
Yeah.
The vagueness in the rules is something that's actually intentional. They're not trying to confuse you or anything like that. What they're trying to do is when a judge comes in, that they have more control than they maybe would with other organizations.
Yeah, they want to leave it up to the judge. They
want the judge
allow the judge's expertise to show more so than maybe getting an exact Skyhound score.
Right. And with Skyhounds, your descriptions are going to be like 2 sentences for each category. It's really not much more than that. It's very simple, gives you an idea what you're looking for, and then the judge decides what they want to do. And that is intentional by them. And then when you talk about, I would say UFO and AWI, I would say they're kind of grouped together in the next level.
They're kind of similar. They have a little bit more detail.
Right. A little more detail, but it's still up for interpretation, and there's no absolutes. There's really no you must do this or anything like that.
Right.
And then when you get to Updog and USDDN, it's more of a specific things that they're looking for that they actually call out in much better detail and even assign score ranges for individual things, which might be up to 2.5 points for this and that type of thing.
Yeah. And those, to me, I think, is maybe a little bit easier for somebody who's inexperienced or, maybe doesn't quite know what they're looking at. It gives you better details. And it kind of allows for newer judges to maybe be better judges because it calls out exactly what you're looking for. And it's a little bit more defined and easier to understand.
Right. I know whenever we started, one of the things we were both told was when we would say, well, what are judges looking for? And I remember Robin pulled out a sheet of paper, and it was the USDDN, like the one sheet of paper that kind of like the score sheet, and it kind of listed everything. It didn't go into all the details, but just that score sheet showed you everything. She said, this is what you need, and it just basically outlines what judges are generally looking for. It does kind of cover.
And you know what's funny is when I get asked the same question, I generally do that too.
Right.
I feel like, to me, it's like USDDN kind of put in the work to define a lot of the stuff.
Right.
I feel like Updog sort of drew from USDDN and kind of took what they wanted from it.
As did the IDC. I would say they have a very similar kind of score sheet. So
theirs is not quite as defined, but you know what? They actually changed it. I don't know if you realize they did change it this year, which I don't want to get into major detail just because I don't have it in front of me, and I didn't really get to read it through. It was more of a discussion between the judges and the competitors that day, and I wasn't even a competitor, so I don't want to speak on it too much because I don't really know about it, but I just know that IDC is a little bit of its own thing. It's kind of out there.
Right. And I suppose that a good place to start is looking at the USDDN rules or the UpDog rules to give you an idea of very specific things that we're looking for in the sport. Even though it's interesting because at the same time, they're kind of the most complex because there's so many different things that they define.
Right.
That it makes it a bit more complicated, but it explains things better to you than just a couple sentences.
Kind of gives you a checklist.
Yes.
It's a little more educational.
Right.
Whereas I think that, you know, the other three, AWI, UFO, and Skyhounds, sort of rely on just judges having long time experience in the sport and, you know, maybe their accomplishments themselves rather than defining everything.
Right. So how, if you're going from one extreme to the other, or if you're in the middle, which I consider like the AWI and UFO rules more in the middle between
to me, let me lay that out a little bit. So we kind of view Skyhounds and USDDN as like total opposites of each other in terms of like their judgment of freestyle and the way that they define it, and just simply the rules. I mean, Skyhounds is 5 discs. USDDN, other than IDC, I think we're mostly going to leave IDC out of this conversation.
Yes.
But so USDDN allows the most discs with 10, and Skyhounds allows 5, and the time difference is 5 discs versus
a minute and a half. You said time difference. My time difference is 5 discs. Wow, that is a crazy thought.
Wow, what a time difference that would be.
It was 4 discs today.
So the disc difference is the most, right?
Yes.
So they have the time difference, 90 seconds, and then they also have the disc difference of 5 discs versus 10 discs.
Right.
So I feel like those are two of the most polar opposites. And USDDN is most defined, where Skyhounds is probably the least defined. And then AWI and UFO kind of sit in the middle, and I think that AWI and UFO are probably closer to each other than anything because it's 7 versus 9 discs. I think that a lot of times they're looking for sort of the same types of things. They really value a lot of the throwing skill and throwing difficulty and that kind of thing as well. That's a whole other episode. You can watch our judging episode if you want to hear all of that. But it's just interesting how those differences, even though it's the same game, just these minor differences, I think, can play into how you make your routine.
Right. And I think for me personally, it's a lot easier to learn to play a 2-minute routine, maybe with 7 discs, or the way I used to do it was with 5 discs. So when I practiced, I was doing my 2-minute routine with 5 discs just to make it more challenging for me, because then if I go to 1.5 minutes and 5 discs, that's easy. And then if I actually use the full 7, 9, 10 discs, whatever it is, for 2 minutes, that's also easier. So it was sort of a way to put pressure on me to learn how to be very good with my disc management, while at the same time filling up on an entire routine with 2 minutes. Muse is over there sneezing.
She's rolling and sneezing, and it's really hard not to watch her and just laugh at her.
It's awesome.
Anyway, she's a good distraction.
So that's what how I kind of look at it is start out with the 2-minute routine and then work backwards to the 1.5 minute routine.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I do that now too. I mean, of course, when you're first starting, it's probably easier to get to 90 seconds because you're really just trying to fill the time when you're just starting.
It is. It just makes going to the 2 minutes tougher.
Yeah. A lot of times, so my 2-minute routine, obviously, I try to put all of my best stuff into 2 minutes. And I always say that, like, when you're really at an advanced level, you have more than 2 minutes of good stuff, and it's a struggle to try to cut out what to even put in the 2-minute routine. So it's even more of a struggle to get to 90 seconds. What is really your best stuff?
Right. And I used to be disappointed having to do a 90-second routine because I'm thinking, what am I going to get rid of? And I want to play more with my dog. So it used to be tough for me, but I've learned to accept it. And it's just how the rules are, and I'm okay with it. And I see the challenges of that routine also. As compared to when you have more discs. Because for me, it's much easier to do a 2-minute routine now with more discs than a 90-second with 5 discs. That's just how it is for me.
Okay.
As soon as I
think it's easier for me to do the 90-second with less discs.
As soon as I get those extra discs, because I always practice with 5 discs. I never do routines and practice with more than 5 discs. So whenever I just get those extra discs, I just think, wow, this is just so much easier for me.
Yeah. So I think some of the adjustments that maybe I make for the time, like Skyhounds, a lot of times what I cut out of that 30 seconds time difference is usually something that's longer throws. And that's simply because Skyhounds, you have less discs, so it's harder to pick them up.
Yes.
And usually, a lot of times, the way I structure my routine, I end up kind of doing more of my longer throws at the end so that I don't have to pick them up. If you do a lot of your longer throws in the beginning, it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle to pick them up unless you have a really good plan about how you're going to do that. So I generally end up cutting out the longer throws, or like a lot of times I end up having a sequence of like longer throws. So like Sora, for example, I have an around the world. That's what gets cut out of my Skyhounds 90-second routine.
And that's very similar to what I typically do. I always drop one sequence. When I go from 2 minutes to 90 seconds, I drop one sequence, and then there's usually a couple longer throws. But what I've learned that I drop out, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. But the other thing I tend to do is I structure my 90-second routine. The way I structure it is I tend to do more of the closer stuff early on. For that reason, you got to have those discs. And I just take the same routine into my 2-minute routine, and I start the same exact way.
I do too. I try to have the beginning always the same. I try not to cut out the very first sequence and the very last sequence. I kind of want those to be the same. Usually something I'm cutting out is going to be from the middle.
And for people that might be watching this to learn what you might want to do, what I strongly suggest not doing is doing much to your individual sequences. Do whatever you can to try to keep them about the same.
Yeah, that's what I do too. I don't try to adjust the sequences. It's like I have a sequence and I either slot it in or slot it out.
And then maybe a couple connecting throws in between, those get adjusted, but that's not necessarily...
But you can also slot those in and slot those out.
Exactly.
Right?
And they're not necessarily impacting the core of your sequence. It's when your sequence is really over and you did the things you really wanted to do, and now am I going to do a medium throw, a long throw, 2 long throws, that kind of thing. Yeah. And that's something when I go to a 2-minute routine that I start throwing in, and a lot of times it's dynamic. I might think, okay, in this case I usually just do one long throw if I have a 90-second routine, but I might adjust it where I got 2 long throws that I do in there. Just to be able to utilize the field more. You have more time, you have more discs. Let's use up the field, cover everything on the field better. But it depends. If my dog hasn't come back to me, I don't want to be standing there waiting and then just do a long throw. So I might just skip a long throw and jump into the next sequence. I make it more dynamic in a 2-minute routine where, like I said, between each sequence, it might be, do I add an extra throw? Do I not? And I just play it by ear as I'm doing the routine. And then as things get put together, usually it stays pretty consistent. And then at most, there might just be 1 or 2 throws through the whole routine that I tweak on a 2-minute throw as I'm playing it, just depending on the conditions and things like that.
Yeah. I think I plan it very much ahead of time. Like I will practice. So like lately what I've practiced is, okay, let me practice with 9 discs in 2 minutes versus 5 discs. And the differences. So like, for example, one of the differences might be like she might hand me a disc somewhere where she might not have before. And to me, that may not be so much a sequence change. It could be just the beginning, like part of the transition. The sequence itself isn't really adjusted other than the very beginning piece. Yeah, so generally the piece that I'm cutting out tends to be something that is either disc management related. I don't know that I can achieve great disc management with the 5 discs, or it's something that, okay, maybe this move is a little bit harder, like less, or it's something that's a little bit less consistent. So maybe I'm cutting out something that's like, okay, this is a little bit riskier. Skyhounds is very, I don't want to say catch ratio oriented, but success oriented. You don't want to have any misses if possible. That's the goal. So, I may cut out something a little bit riskier that I might try at AWI or UFO where it's maybe not quite as, dinged. And plus, in a 2-minute routine, you would expect to maybe have more misses than you might have in a 90-second routine. And a 90-second routine, I always like to say, you almost don't have time to screw it up. So there's no recovery either.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
Like it works both ways. You have 90 seconds, it's less time to screw up, but also if you do screw up, you got less time to recover. So you really kind of have to go out there and nail it from the beginning and try not to have any hiccups. Whereas like in a 2-minute routine, a lot of times you see like 3/4 of the way through the minute and a half in and they have like a miss or two. And then they finish the rest of the routine flawlessly. And it really didn't make those 2 misses maybe didn't make that much of an impact. Whereas at Skyhounds, in 90 seconds, you have 2 misses. That's a big impact.
Right. And I think that inherently, like what you were saying with Skyhounds, because it's 90 seconds and fewer discs, you tend to do things a little closer no matter who you are.
Mm-hmm. Their field tends to be a little bit smaller too,
right,
actually.
You should have fewer misses.
Yeah.
That is just part of how the game works with Skyhounds.
Right. Yeah, no, that's totally accurate. And their field, that we didn't mention a lot about the field size, but USDDN generally has the biggest field.
That's a big field.
and then AWI UFO is just a tad smaller. And then Skyhounds is much more narrow and smaller. So if you've been to the finals, I mean, they really flag off pretty close to their diamond-shaped field. So you don't have a lot of room to go long. There's not a lot of extra space.
And, just side note on it, I think it makes the Skyhounds field look really nice when they bring it in tighter because that diamond really shows off.
Helps me keep it straight for DA.
If you were much further away, it would kind of diminish the purpose of that diamond. So even in freestyle, that diamond kind of means something. It's the field. That marks where you are. You don't really go outside of that too much in your freestyle routine. You're going to keep it more or less within that diamond for the most part. One of the things I was going to say about adjusting some of those longer throws, adding them or not adding them. In a 2-minute routine, I'm much more likely to get into a spot where I didn't intend on being, just because I got more time, I got more discs, and I might have enough discs, and I might run across the field as fast as I can, get to my dog, and then whenever I do that, I'm almost in a corner. And that's not a great thing necessarily, but it might not be a bad thing.
It depends.
I might just drop one of my long throws because now I can't really do a back and forth thing. I'm at one end of the field. I'm just going to do one long throw. And it's going to be a really long throw. And then whatever throw that was going to be, I'll just throw it a little further and then get myself more towards the middle, but I'm not going to do a second longer throw or a medium throw or something like that possibly because I just did a really long throw. They just watched the dog run real far, do a cool jump catch, bring it back to me, but that took a while. If I throw in another long throw, it's like, okay.
It's getting toss and fetchy.
Yeah, you took 15 seconds and you got 2 throws. That's not going to work.
Right.
So I might have taken 7 or 8 seconds for one nice long throw and then reset and get back into the middle or close to the middle in front of the judges and continue my sequences.
So it's funny you say that because I feel like at Skyhounds, I'm more likely to get stuck in a corner.
Interesting.
Especially with Sora, who I've got really good field movement with her, and it's really hard for me to take that out. So that's one of the things, like IDC has a smaller field, like way smaller than the rest. I really struggle with Sora because her routine's pretty big and it's very tough. Even with the 5 discs, it's smaller, our field movement, but she's got a lot. I mean, I would say probably one of the most field movement routines for Skyhounds, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and specifically when you mentioned the IDC field, I know we're not spending a ton of time on it because there's
it's
just
a little bit of
very
a different
small
thing.
number of people even get to go do it, and there's only 2 events plus the final. But that one is very easy to get stuck in a corner, and if you do, you're done.
It's tough. It's
because
really tough.
There's hard walls there.
Yep.
And they're right there. And so what I typically do, what I've learned over the years, is don't be so aggressive with running around like crazy, because if you do, in no time at all, you're on the other end of the field and now you're stuck there, you are in so much trouble. Do the thing where you pump up the crowd for a second, just give your dog an extra second to come back, because if I just go rush over to them, I'm going to be in the corner. I'm going to be in the corner again. You're constantly going to be stuck.
Yeah.
We've both lost events because we got stuck in a corner
Yep.
once, and then you can't get out of it. It's
very hard. Well, and then it's, if your routine was not planned for that, and like you're in a corner and the only way you can throw is downwind, and your next throw in the routine is an upside down throw, you have to rethink.
Yep.
You have to rethink
That's
what you're doing completely, because you can't throw an upside down throw downwind
and have expectations
of it going well. Okay, that's generally a bad idea. So then you've got to change a throw, and then it's like, okay, are you repeating a throw? There's a lot of things that then are going through your head. Right. You're like, oh God, what do I do now? How do I get out of here? And that's really not what you want to be thinking. I mean, none of that. I try to plan all of that in advance. I mean, that's something when I go to an event and I go on the field beforehand, I'm not even so much practicing my throws when I warm up for freestyle. I'm trying to feel the space of the field and how I'm going to use the space of the field and which direction specifically that I'm going to throw in. Sure, based on the wind direction, but also just the size of the field and how it is.
Always, I've said this so many times, I think, on the podcast, when you're doing freestyle, always take advantage of those morning moments when you walk onto the field. There's introductions. They call everyone onto the field. Do that so you get a feeling for it. If the field's open and you walk across the field.
If you're lucky enough to get an open field and you can walk around
walk across, get a feel for it. Always do that. Take it in. Know what you're going to expect so that when you go out and do your routine, you're not like a deer in the headlights, because I know that used to happen to me early on, where I wouldn't even be on the field and then I go on to do my freestyle and I'm like looking around and I'm like, it just looks totally different than looking at it from the sideline. Get a feel for, where the judges are going to be, where the speakers are. If you don't want to throw near the speakers, maybe there's a tent with dogs barking, the people are going to be set up in one area. You might not want to go there. That kind of thing.
Maybe somebody's grilling something in one corner.
There are so many
seriously, there's
things.
A lot of distractions.
Take it all in. Any opportunity you can get onto the field, do it. Until you get used to it, like especially in a location.
You want to feel comfortable. It shouldn't feel foreign to you walking onto that field.
There's our Skyhounds field, our local field that we play all the time. I don't need to do that anymore because I've been on them hundreds of times.
That's also a disadvantage for us because we forget to do this. We arrive at a new
that's
field,
true.
and then it's like, oh shoot, oh yeah, what do I do again? This is a whole new field. I mean, you want to check the grade of the
contour,
field,
yeah. Feel the wind. We found at the IDC, especially when they have the bleachers, that a wind can be blocked in certain areas, and you might want to move your routine slightly in that direction. There's so many things that you want to take advantage of.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've gotten on a tangent a little bit, but so let's go back to kind of the rules and stuff and the differences. So is there anything else that you wanted to say about like differences in the timing and the number of discs?
Yes. One thing that's super important, you mentioned in Skyhounds, you tend not to do it around the world. And I think most people have that mentality. I wanted to kind of flip that with Muse, and I wanted to keep my around the world in it because I think she's so good at it, so predictable for me.
And a lot of people are taking it out. So you're going to stand out by doing it.
Nobody's doing it. And I could do some really cool throws. And I actually started with a reverse vault, which we've talked about how that gets you in such a circular kind of motion, doing a reverse vault where the dog is rotating and then you continue into a rotation. I was able to do that in my Skyhounds routine by picking up a disc or two while I'm doing it if I need to, and typically I would. They weren't all exactly planned, but I would try to grab a disc in the middle of my sequence that wouldn't even really be noticed. Or if it was, it didn't matter. Let's say it's the last throw of the sequence where it's going to be a longer throw. I might get down on the ground, do a nice staker from my knee. It's part of the throw. Now I did a throw from my knee, which adds to it. That's really nice. And I do the exact same sequence, but I'm picking up a disc here or there dynamically as I'm doing the sequence. And whereas whenever I do my 2-minute routine, I don't bother with any of that. I make it easier on myself. I just have all the discs in my hand and do the sequence.
Yeah.
So that's an really adjustment I make, going the opposite direction by doing a difficult, longer throwing kind of thing in my 90-second routine. And the other thing I'll do is whenever I'm done with that routine, that sequence, hopefully I still have a disc or two in my hand because I'm kind of trying to grab them as I'm doing it. And then whenever I'm done, I might have one in my hand maybe 2 if I'm lucky, but probably just 1, but that's better than 0. And I'm probably really close to 1. I'm moving with her, so I go right where she had dropped her last one, and I'm within a few feet of it, and I grab it. So now I got 2 already, and she's still chasing my disc. I run over, grab a third one. By the time she catches it, I might not need any more. 3 is more than enough.
Yeah.
And I just did a big sequence right in the middle of my routine. I don't even do it at the end. I do it right in the middle.
Yeah. What's cool about that is like you kind of get to show, okay, my dog drops where I want her to. Like there's a lot of skills involved.
It's controlled.
In doing that.
It's planned. I'm doing my motion. I am moving. I don't do the around the world where you stand there like a stick and just throw dots. I personally don't prefer that. I think it's not as fun. I like to run with my dog, so they're maybe 5 to 10 feet away from me, and we're both running together. Yeah, so I'm already doing the motion. I just grab a disc as I'm doing it.
Right. For me, I think the difference in the number of discs is actually more impactful than the timing difference, for me anyway.
Going from 5 to more than 5.
Going from 5 to more than 5. Just because it really changes how I put the sequences together. I think that, obviously in Skyhounds, you're not going to make a 6-disc sequence or more, right? Because
not
you
intentionally.
Can't. No, not intentionally. You can't. It's not possible. So whereas the other organizations, you're going to have that option to do that. And that could be something that you cut out too, right? Like, maybe you have a 6-disc sequence in one of the other organizations, but that's what you cut out for Skyhounds. So, the other challenge too is like the number of discs that you start with, right? Like, so Skyhounds, I generally try to start with 5 because that's what I'm going to have. And, they have the 20-second timer, which is different from all the other organizations. So you don't really have time to go out there and set up your discs is what I've learned. I got screwed one year. I tried it, with Sora. I wanted to start with 3 and I'd set out the other 2 discs. And one year I thought that it was a mistake and they started the timer and nope, I had just went through my 20 seconds. And I realized that risk was not worth the reward of what I had planned to do by setting up the other discs on the field. So really the problem was solved by just starting with the 5 discs in your hand, go get to your spot. And so, playing both Skyhounds and the other organizations, I have sort of forced myself into starting with 5 discs no matter what.
And I do the same thing. And my recommendation is whether it's 5 or fewer than 5, just start with the exact same number of discs, no matter what organization. Your start is the same.
Yes.
You're not changing your routine then, and that's so important. And it feels the same. Everything's the same. I think it even helps the dog. Hey, You're doing the same exact thing we always do.
Well, and I think that's part of the challenge. I mean, it makes it better, right? It makes it easier for you to succeed if you do keep your routines between organizations as similar as possible. However, to try to make a routine that actually satisfies all of the organization's rules is a bit more challenging because they do call out certain things. USDDN specifically calls out that they want you to use different numbers of discs for each sequence. None of the organizations call that out. So, but USDDN is looking for that. And I actually tend to like that rule because I think if you're going to use, 4 discs for every sequence, it's a little bit like wash, rinse, repeat kind of thing. And it shows a little bit more skill if you're going to use different numbers of discs. Like, for example, you might see somebody with a 1 or a 2 disc sequence and they're going to show off that the dog's going to hand it back. And you see this kind of cool little dance communication between the handler and the dog of showing different handoffs and stuff like that you can play a whole sequence with just 1 or 2 discs is very unique, rather than just always using 3 or 4 discs.
Right. And then with your extra discs, you're going to place them out on the field. If you put them in a couple different places, it can force you to move across the field quicker. Use that as a way to help train yourself. I'm going to put the discs over there 10 yards away from me. I'm going to have to go get those.
Right.
And plan it in your routine, and that's going to make your routine look better, especially in USDDN.
Yeah, I think you see it a lot in the USDDN routines.
Field coverage.
Plus 10 can be hard to hold.
and the thing to keep in mind, this is so important, USDDN, as soon as you walk in the field, what?
They're judging you.
Yes. So when you're placing your discs out there, you're being judged. Every moment of it, look good doing it, meaning don't have your dog running over and grabbing him out of your hand. Don't drop him. Don't fumble. Don't think, do I want him here? No, I'm going to move him there. Well, maybe I should put 3 here and 4 there. No, I don't. Have a plan. Boom, I'm putting them there, I set up. I tell the judges I'm ready, or the sound machine guy, girl, I'm ready. And then you look very professional doing it. And then during your routine, make sure you use all of them.
Whereas like Skyhounds, you're not judged until time begins. So even if you do a routine, pre-routine or anything, it's basically not counted for anything.
And USDDN, a great example. Let's say you take 1 step on the field, your dog takes 1 step on the field, and your dog goes to the potty on the field. You're done. Your round's over. You got a 0 or whatever. I think it's a 0. I don't know how it works anymore. They reduce your number of points somehow.
You're deducted. Yeah.
If you haven't started, you're getting a 0.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. Well, your round is stopped. That's the main thing. That's the worst part of it. Is your round is done.
So the other thing I wanted to mention about the number of discs you have in your hand when you start, if you walk out with 10 discs in your hand, it looks weird as a judge. When I'm judging and I see that, it's distracting. It looks strange because it is a big fanned out thing. It's huge. And I can't believe it when I see it. I'm just like, why are they doing that? It doesn't look good to me. It's actually bizarre because there's so many discs. I think
it makes it challenging to complete the sequences too. Because a lot of times they get in the way. There's a lot of moves
slower.
That you only need 1 or 2.
You could fumble the discs. I saw somebody in the IDC once, because you're unlimited, take out just a stack, and they're holding a stack and they're going like this and stuff. And it's like, that's what we don't want to see, to be honest with you.
Because it just doesn't look planned and it doesn't look smooth. Right. I mean, kind of like...
And you're making it more difficult on yourself by trying to hold all these discs.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Which is what you said also.
Right. Yeah, I mean, anymore, my strategy with Sora has really been to start with 5, because it applies to everything and I can use it everywhere, and the beginning can stay the same. And then, for the other organizations, I tend to set the discs out for her specifically. Flair, I don't. I can get field movement a little bit easier with her, but Sora, I actually plan it out. I set the discs out further, more USDDN style, so that I'm forced to go to different areas, because one of the things is that if the dog drops the disc near you, then you pick them up near you. And if your dog's already back to you, it looks really odd to go run to another area of the field. Whereas like if I can just grab one that's near me and then go to the next pile that's in another area of the field, then I already have them set up and I'm there to use them. And I'll meet her at that stack of discs. Yeah. So I'm inherently going to get the field movement with less effort for me, because I don't have to, kind of look around and scan for what I got to pick up. I can just know that those are there and I go to that area and get them. So, that's probably the reason you see a lot of that in, USDDN, AWI, people setting out the discs. So we talked about the differences in, 90 seconds versus 2 minutes, and the difference in discs. Is there any like specific rules other than those 2 main things that you kind of change what you're doing for, or adjust how you play?
I don't really adjust so much, except the fact that Skyhounds, you only got that 90 seconds, those 5 discs. Like we already said, the misses just kill you. But I really don't change my routine. Maybe because the field's a little bit smaller, my long throws are maybe a little easier for my dog, because I'm not usually not throwing much over 25, 30 yards. That would be probably the limit.
Right.
And if you're in the middle, it's probably 20 yards or so. And so I would say that's one of the main things that's in my mind. But I don't really make any changes from one organization to the other. I try to make my routine so that I hope everybody likes it.
So to go into that, I mean, do you try to make your routine so that it satisfies all of the organizations?
Yes, with the exception of I don't worry as much about USDDN. One of the things in USDDN is they have what's called the required elements. But the required elements, you only have to do 4 out of 7.
Yeah. So, and it's vaults, overs, dog catch, team movement, directional distance movement, which is around the world or zigzag, passing. Is there one more? Am I missing one?
That's close enough.
You can look it up.
So with that one, here's the thing. You don't need all of them. I don't try to get all of them. Most people think I got to get all 7, and they just focus, because it does give you the best chance for points. I don't worry about it. I figure as long as I'm always going to have at least 4 of those elements. probably going to have 5 or 6 of those elements. And if some of them aren't as good, that's fine. I don't worry about it because I'm going to have enough of the elements. So I don't really change for that. I might add something like I might at the end add a different dog catch or something if I got one or something like that, just to add a special dog catch. But for the most part, I don't really do much different.
Okay.
I try to have everything ahead of time to where I think everyone should like this.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah, I generally design for Skyhound's disc management, having 5 discs. I need to be able to do this with 5 discs, and then the additional discs that I get in the other organizations just benefit me to be able to move around the field a little bit more than what I do at Skyhounds. And I do, by the way, I expect it with 5 discs, I better still be able to move around the field at Skyhounds. I'm not going to like play in a telephone box. And so for the other ones, I am just going to move around a bit more and maybe be a little bit more relaxed about collecting the discs because there's more to collect, so it's easier.
There is I don't show it, but sometimes I feel a little frantic in Skyhounds because I think I got to get that disc.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it over there and I'm running to it and I'm seeing my dog. My dog's running back. I'm like, am I going to get there in time?
Yeah. Your dog drops one a little bit further away and you're like, no, not at Skyhounds. Please do it somewhere else.
But I don't change what I'm doing. I got to go get that disc. I got to go get it.
So I designed for, disc management wise of Skyhounds. And then as far as designing like the sequences and the actual content of the routine, I really base that off of the dog first and foremost. And, I'm not as concerned about the specifics of what the judging panel is going to look at, what is called out in the rules. Sure, I try to apply it when I can. I've read all the rules back to front, upside down, everything a million times. So I know what they're looking for. And just, years of experience and asking judges over the years, I know what they're looking for. So sometimes I realize when I put together a routine that maybe I'm not satisfying exactly what they're looking for. And that's okay for me because I would rather just do what my dog does really well. And so I put that together. And then sometimes I do adjust it a little bit. There's been years like, okay, so Sora, if I know I'm going to go to USDDN, then I may tweak some of the things to make it a little bit more USDDN friendly. I'm going to try to have all of the elements if I feel like my dog can do them really well. Sora, luckily for me, is that specific dog is very good at all of the elements. So, I don't feel like there's something that I have to cut out. Whereas, maybe my first dog, Sketch, was not so good at vaulting. So I would cut that out with him. But I might, design the routine like USDDN. It's very specific in the way that it's judged, and it's a lot easier if you put. So, for example, like you would have 2 vaults. If you put those 2 vaults closer together in the routine, it's much easier to judge than if you do a vault in the very beginning and a vault in the very end. So if you do that with all of your things, so keep in mind there's 7 things that they're looking for, right? So if you're judging the team category and looking for those elements, if you have a vault in the beginning and a vault in the end, and over in the beginning and an over in the end, and they're trying to judge 2 overs, 2 vaults, and you've got them split apart, it's much harder for them to score it. So if I'm going to go to a USDDN event specifically, then I'm going to think about maybe I should put those elements a little bit more grouped together, a little bit easier for them to see. Now, I always keep in mind that first and foremost, I'm going to do what looks best for my dog and creatively what I want to do at the end of the day. But there is a little bit more freedom, I feel like, in the organizations that don't call out those specifics, because if I'm not going to go to a USDDN event, like for example, this year I've split apart some of those elements a little bit more. I gave myself a little bit more freedom because I happen, not for any reason other than logistics, I happen to not be going to a USDDN finals event this year. So when I was tweaking my routine, I kind of split some stuff up a little bit more with Sora this year, and made it a little bit different than maybe what we've done the last couple of years that we went to USDDN finals.
And for me, with like a dog like Bon Bon, I had absolutely no plans of ever competing with her at USDDN. It was going to be another dog because you can only play with one dog at USDDN. So it was, if I was going to go to USDDN, it wouldn't be with her. So her routine, whenever I do a local USDDN, there's no chance I'm changing it for anything USDDN's looking for. Don't even worry about my scores, what's going to happen.
You just play it.
I'm just playing.
Yeah.
And just doing my routine, and I know what I need to do for whatever organizations I am trying to play for that particular year or whatever, or for her, and I don't let it bother me. So that's the other thing. You don't need to let it be a burden to you or a concern, especially if you're not going to be going to those finals, or if you just have a one-off event you're going to. Don't change anything. Just go and play your routine and don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Especially if it's just a qualifier, local qualifier. Especially if you're not trying to qualify, like just go do what you do. You know, and there are some dogs that their styles are a little bit more suited for one organization than the other. I mean, I think Flair's a really good example of, like, I feel like her style's pretty suited to Skyhounds. A lot of quick, rapid throws, bouncy, maybe not necessarily the most difficult, longer throws. I mean, you know, UFO and AWI and even USDDN, they tend to like to see more long throws, and their rules kind of allow for that, having more time and more discs. And, you know, asking for that, really. Skyhounds, you almost don't have enough time to really even do that. And so, like, to me, Flair's style, just her natural style, tends to veer more towards oriented to Skyhounds, because she's very bouncy and a lot of quick throws in a short amount of time.
Really good at catching.
Good at catching. But, you know, I can't do like a big zigzag with her. It's not gonna go very well. Okay, it's just not. And you know, and some of the like harder trick throws Flair struggles with unless they're absolutely perfect. So, you know, if maybe what I cut out with her, she has like 1 or 2 sequences because she goes so darn fast that I might cut out with her for Skyhounds, and what I might put back in for a UFO or AWI event is something that, you know, might have a little bit more trick throws. Like I do a behind the back forehand throw that I might not do at Skyhounds because it's a little bit more risky, but at AWI and UFO, I have time and I need to, you know, put something in there, and that's something a little more challenging for her. But if she hits it, it's going to be great, right?
Right, and I'd say another thing with USDDN, you have a number of vaults with Flair. Doing extra vaults at USDDN isn't necessarily going to help you a whole lot.
No, it's not.
It'll help with athleticism, a few things, but with their components they're looking for, they want 2 vaults.
Yep.
And it's not your 2 best vaults. They're going to take
all of them.
All of your vaults. So if you have 2 good ones, 2 bad ones, they'll average out, kind of thing. And so having 6, 7 vaults roughly is probably what you have. It's not going to help. And then additional dog catches and overs, and as soon as you add all those together,
right,
that's half of your routine. And then that's only 2 or 3 categories among a ton of categories.
Right.
So,
well, like just using Flair and Sora as an example. So Flair has a lot of variety of vaults. She has a lot of different ones. She vaults off me off the ground. She vaults off of me back vault, leg vaults, reverse vaults, like all different vaults. They're not as difficult. Sora has 2 vaults. She has a running vault, running back vault, and where I'm kind of in a moving position when she does it. And then I have a double disc leg vault. And then occasionally I may add one here or there depending on the years, but those have really been kind of her 2 staple vaults for the last couple of years. And so Sora's got less vaults, but they're more difficult. So Flair's got a lot more variety in her vaults. They're a little bit more simple. And so what USDDN calls out and what they're looking for is more like what Sora does. They're not looking for as many as Flair does. And Flair does them, you know, a ton of them, and they're beautiful, and that's kind of her strength. And the other organizations don't call out the specifics of what they want to see. So there's no...
They'll like all of them equally.
Well, in theory, I mean, I guess it depends on who's judging, right?
Well,
because it's left up to the judge. But, you know, if they like cute little Flair
right,
and her bouncing, then they're going to like what she does. And generally, most judges, I think, tend to like Flair's style because, I mean, she's cute. And fun. But, yeah, I think it's really interesting. If you haven't read through the rules of all of these different organizations, I would encourage you to go look through them really, you know, detailed. Like I would even make checklists. I've done that before where I kind of tried to read what they had and then create a checklist for each one of really what the rules call out and what they're looking for. Because I'll tell you what, like when I judge freestyle, yes, I've read the rules for all of them up and down and everything, but when I go to judge something, I read them again just so it's fresh in my head. What am I looking for as a Skyhounds judge versus an AWI judge? I read the AWI rules. My head might be in a little bit of a different place than if I were judging a USDDN event. Right?
I suppose that for most of them, I feel like I've judged them enough that at least the categories I'm very familiar with.
Sure.
I just feel like I could just go in and judge them. I don't.
No I feel longer, that too, but I do kind of look at it a little bit, skim it, just to remember. I don't know.
I don't. But if it's a category that I've never judged before for some reason, then that's something that I would definitely review. Like, wait a second, what does that one require? Because I don't think I've ever done it, or I haven't done it in 15 years or something. Right. Then I review it.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you
had to
add?
I think that's it. I think my biggest suggestion, if I want to give one, or if you want to hear it, is practice with 5 discs no matter which organization, just because it's going to challenge you on all of them, and it will make you better no matter what.
It'll make you better at disc management. It absolutely will. And the rest of the discs are just a blessing when you go somewhere else.
Or at least at a minimum, do less. If it's USDDN, do 9 or 8 whenever you're practicing, or UFO, do 6 kind of thing. And yeah,
because you never knew when you're going to lose one. I've had that happen before. A dog tips one out of the field, and oops, okay, can't get it back for whatever reason, and you're down a disc. And it doesn't happen that often, but you never know. It's always nice to be prepared.
That's right.
So I hope you enjoyed this episode of kind of just talking about the differences. And what has this been?
The Disc Dog Pod. We did it perfect.
See ya.
We did it perfect.